An injured woman fled from bandits into the embrace of a cowboy who clandestinely established an empire. Hold on, dear. You are bleeding into the sand. Who perpetrated this against you? June became immobile. Her arm reflexively extended backward, fingertips grazing the grip of the little knife concealed in her waistline. Her breaths were rapid and erratic. The voice was profound, unwavering, surprised, yet not hostile. The man who approached was tall and broad-shouldered, adorned with a dust-laden cowboy hat and a lengthy canvas coat, his boots quietly crunching on the desert gravel. "I'm not here to harm you," he stated, elevating both hands gradually. "However, assistance is required. That penetrates too profoundly for mere fabric and supplication." June's eyes flicked to his, anticipating calculating or something more sinister. Yet all she perceived was apprehension. Her body quaked with adrenaline, hemorrhage, and trepidation. She was barefoot, her torn jeans saturated at the thigh with a deep crimson stain, and the right side of her top was ripped and hanging loosely. "I require no assistance," she said, retreating. "You are exhibiting a limp," he responded. "I am fairly certain your legs would contest that." The sun was starting to descend, creating elongated shadows across the parched hills. The desert wind intensified, irritating her eyes and whirling dust in the fading light. Her sight became indistinct. She blinked forcefully, her knees on the verge of collapsing. He advanced one deliberate step forward. "Allow me to assist you in standing. Simply to shield you from the wind." June's voice faltered. "No police officers. Contact anyone, and I will disappear. No one is arriving. I also dislike sirens." She observed him, chest rising and falling, contemplating the final vestige of trust she possessed in the world. Subsequently, the surroundings around her became skewed. Suddenly, powerful arms intercepted her before she fell to the ground. Upon reopening her eyes, June was greeted with the illumination of a lamp and the aromas of wood smoke and leather. The agony in her leg pulsated strongly, prompting her to automatically attempt to sit up. "Take it easy," the cowboy's voice resonated once more, now more subdued. "You are secure. I have provided you with the best care possible." She surveyed her surroundings. They were within a little wooden cabin featuring stone walls and a sloped roof. There were no images, no electronic devices, only minimal furnishings, a wood-burning stove, and the distant sound of a fire crackling outdoors. Her leg was elevated on a stool and encased in sterile gauze. She observed the discoloration of her blood permeating through. "Do you reside in this area?" She uttered a harsh sound. "I concur. Are you a survivalist of some sort?" He offered a faint smile. "I simply prefer tranquilly and alone." She narrowed her eyes at him, attempting to decipher his expression once more. "What is your name?" "Caleb." "What is your motivation for assisting me, Caleb?" He gazed at her for an extended moment. "Due to an individual's failure to act." June gulped, her throat parched. "Do you possess water?" He delivered a metal cup. She imbibed voraciously, grimacing as the motion strained the injury. Upon completion, she inquired, "Where are we?" "Dust Valley, an isolated location according to most maps." "Ideal." Caleb knelt to the fireplace, adding another wood to the flames. "Do you wish to inform me of the events that transpired?" "Negative." "Acceptable." The silence prolonged. June gazed at her bandaged leg before directing her attention to the door. "I will depart by morning. You will not be able to traverse 3 meters on that leg. I will proceed by crawling if necessary." He refrained from disputation. He rose and approached a wooden shelf, retrieving a clean shirt and placing it beside her. "You may remain for as long as necessary, provided you refrain from causing any disturbances here." "I have already done so," she said, her gaze resolute. "They are approaching." His jaw clenched. "Whom?" "Individuals armed with firearms. Inferior individuals. They were expected to transport me to a specific location." I sprinted. Caleb acquiesced with a deliberate nod. "Cartel. Inferior. Confidential. Compensated. They do not permit witnesses to remain." She shifted uneasily, a grimace of misery across her face. "We will ensure they do not locate you." Caleb spoke softly. "You are unaware of the implications of your actions. I have encountered more formidable challenges than armed men." On that night, June scarcely slumbered. Her body ached, and her mind whirled with trepidation. However, a portion of her, entrenched in trauma and skepticism, adhered to the tranquil cadence of the fire and the serene presence of the stranger who had neither betrayed her nor posed excessive inquiries. She succumbed to slumber amidst the faraway howls of coyotes. At dawn, Caleb was already outdoors attending to the horses. He traversed with the fluidity of one intimately familiar with every contour of the terrain beneath his feet. June hobbled to the entrance, relying significantly on the doorframe for support. "Have you ever utilized a rifle?" he inquired without turning. She exhibited reluctance. "A small amount," he presented one to her. "Just in case." June grasped it, her fingers reflexively verifying the safety, while her eyes surveyed the horizon. Subsequently, she observed it. Tiens-point, profound entities. At least 2 vehicles had deviated from the primary dirt road, situated less than 100 yards from the cabin, and then retraced their path towards the eastern ridge. Her stomach sank. "They are near," she said. Caleb directed his attention to her line of sight. His jaw tightened. "They are monitoring your movements." June's throat constricted. "I believed I misled them at the canyon." "You left blood in your wake," he stated somberly. "That suffices for canines or resolute individuals." He glanced back at her, his gaze now more piercing. "They will arrive by tonight." She tightened her hold on the weapon. "We must prepare ourselves." Caleb nodded once. "We shall be." As the ascending sun ignited the horizon, both understood that tranquility had ceased. June awoke to the gentle aroma of cedar smoke and something cooking over the fire. Perhaps beans, or a hearty stew she had not sampled in years. The pain in her leg persisted, dull and throbbing, yet now was neatly bandaged, snug but not constricting. She gradually sat up, grimacing, and discovered herself once more in the little wooden shack. Caleb was positioned just outside the door, honing a knife on a stone with deliberate, methodical motions. His back was expansive beneath his tattered flannel shirt, with his hat positioned on the rail behind him. The morning air was brisk, transparent, and tranquil, interrupted only by the sporadic chirp of a bird or the creak of the windmill rotating behind the cabin. He remained facing away as she entered the doorway, leaning hard on the frame. "Are you always this silent?" she inquired. Caleb cast a glance behind him. "Only during an individual's recovery process. I am not recuperating. I am concealing myself. Identical occurrences on some days." June hobbled to a wooden stool and sat down. He presented her with a mug of a warm beverage. The coffee was robust and acrid, yet it penetrated the mental haze with precision. She imbibed, expressing gratitude. He did not exert pressure on her, did not inquire about the reasons for her flight, the identity of her pursuer, or the discrepancy between her youthful visage and the age reflected in her eyes. And that disturbed her more than any inquiry could have. "Are you not curious about my actions?" she inquired at last, gazing into her cup. "If you wish to disclose, you will. What if I pose a threat?" Caleb regarded her again, his gaze steady, yet devoid of warmth. "Then you would not experience fear." June exhaled, a mixture of relief and an unnamed weight. She took another drink of coffee and gazed across the landscape. It was expansive and wild, consisting solely of sand, vegetation, and the gradual illumination of remote hills. A location that cannot be possessed, yet some may attempt to claim it. "What is this location?" she inquired. "Belonging to me. Do you possess all of this?" He acknowledged with a single nod. She fluttered her eyelids. "What actions do you take regarding it?" Caleb offered a faint smile. "You observe it. Allow it to aerate. Do you not offer it for sale?" "Negative. Absence of livestock. Only equines and tranquilly." June scrutinized him. His hands were calloused, his attire unadorned, yet nothing about him suggested the mundane. He moved like an individual who had constructed, lost, and battled for a cause greater than himself. "What is your actual profession?" she inquired. Caleb paused for an extended duration before stating succinctly, I tend to the land. That suffices, she narrowed her gaze. Are you suggesting that you tend to it as a rancher would? Or did she pause herself? He remained silent, but grabbed her empty mug, replenished it, and returned it to her. By afternoon, June's interest had become entrenched. She strove to remain indifferent. However, Caleb's quiet exacerbated her difficulty. The stillness did not conceal anything. It was the type that compelled one to articulate into it. She positioned herself beside the fence while he maneuvered the corral, directing 2 horses with deft, skilled gestures. His forbearance towards them, his composure. It seemed exceptional, nearly hallowed. She recalled hands that once grasped her excessively, smiles that transformed into confinement. A man she had confided in betrayed her by selling her knowledge to criminals for immediate profit, leaving her vulnerable to individuals with sinister grins and lethal weapons. She observed Caleb and experienced an unusual sensation. Security. Will you ever inquire about what transpired? She shouted. He ceased grooming the mayor and glanced above. Only if you desire me to be informed. June exhibited reluctance. Deceive me. My former partner stated that I was a burden. Provided them with all resources. My place of residence and my future location. I was meant to vanish. Caleb did not respond like others did. No astonishment, no ire, no compassion. Simply a gradual, profound inhalation. It appears that another individual has made a decision they are unworthy of enduring, he stated. June averted her gaze, experiencing a surge of warmth in her throat. It is foolish. I ought to have anticipated it. Trusting someone is not foolish, he responded. It is courageous. The betrayal lies with them. She blinked rapidly. A considerable duration had elapsed since anyone articulated that. Perhaps eternally. He approached and rested on the fence adjacent to her. Are you intending to be absent indefinitely? I am uncertain. I am uncertain where the concept of gone concludes. You will recognize when it begins to feel like breathing once more. June allowed that to be absorbed. She observed him for a little while. What is the rationale for residing in isolation here? He gazed at the hills. Having witnessed the effects of wealth and ambition on individuals, a brief respite of stillness and nature is the sole remedy. You are affluent, correct? Caleb remained silent. You remain affluent. He grinned faintly. I am precisely where I ought to be. That night, June remained awake beneath a heavy wool blanket, gazing at the wooden ceiling beams. Caleb was in the adjacent room, gently hammering something by the light of a lantern. For the first time in an extended period, her heart was not consumed by fear, but rather by inquiries and perhaps a modicum of hope. The conflagration occurred unexpectedly. June awakened to the acrid sensation of smoke in her throat and the flickering illumination of fires reflecting off the cabin walls. Outside, she discerned the sound of boots crushing gravel, glass breaking, and a voice exclaiming, "Where is she, Caleb?" She extended her hand towards the weapon. Departed. Caleb had also departed. With the front door forcefully flung open, June leaped through the back window and landed heavily on the ground. Agonizing pain coursed through her recovering leg, yet she crawled into the underbrush. Each breath labored. Resonances reverberated among the trees. She could not have traveled far. Carter has acquired the female companion. Locate her. She wedged herself into a rocky crevice, blood oozing through her bandage. Her heart raced. They were aware of Caleb's name. Subsequently, another scream. Caleb. She was unable to remain concealed. Not throughout his time outside. She seized her knife and slid back towards the flames. Smoke spiraled among the trees. She observed Caleb kneeling through it. His visage was contused and sanguine. A man towered above him. Another directed a shotgun. Carter should have remained buried, the assailant said. Your Minorland endeavor concludes this evening. Do you believe this pertains to land? June approached cautiously. The assailant elevated his firearm. Hey, she yelled. All 3 individuals turned. She surged forward, plunging her blade into the assailant's side. He screamed and relinquished the weapon. Caleb lunged forward, delivering a decisive blow to the second assailant's jaw. The third assailant charged at June, but Caleb intercepted him, and they grappled in the dirt, exchanging punches. June seized a shotgun and discharged it, injuring the attacker, who staggered backward. The remaining assailants retreated into the trees. June relinquished the firearm and rushed to Caleb, who was leaning against a log, panting, with blood saturating his shirt. "You are injured," she stated, applying pressure to his side. "Merely a graze," he replied. "They will return. North Ridge," he indicated. "Family land is secure." She draped his arm over her shoulder. "You rescued me. Now I will rescue you." They traversed the forest, the flames behind them illuminating the darkness with an orange hue. Caleb faltered, groaning, yet maintained his grip on her. Prior to dawn, they arrived at a dilapidated ranch house, neglected and forsaken. June assisted him indoors, gently placing him onto a cot. Both were injured, fatigued, and trembling, yet they were alive, and amidst the remnants of the night, a tangible transformation had occurred between them. The deserted ranch house remained silent the following morning, the stillness intermittently disrupted by the creaking of wood shifting in the breeze. Sunlight permeated the fissures in the dilapidated walls, projecting elongated rays onto the dusty floor. June navigated cautiously, her legs still aching, yet the fervor within her had been rekindled. Caleb lay unconscious in the adjacent room, pallid from blood loss, yet his breathing remained steady. She had administered what care she could to bandage him. Now, curiosity compelled her more intensely than fatigue. She navigated the house with deliberate, cautious steps over aged floorboards and scattered tools. Once a vibrant abode of life and family, it now resembled a skeletal remnant of memory, yet was not entirely devoid of substance. In a rear room, June discovered a rusted metal cabinet with its doors ajar. Within, she found rolls of antiquated land maps, yellow documents, and time-worn folders. She grasped the uppermost file, removing the dust. Carter Land Group. The name resonated in her consciousness. She opened the folder. It contained property deeds, transaction records, some dating back a decade. Numerous names, parcels acquired, sold, and occasionally reverted. A red stamp indicated that many of the later files were reclaimed. June extracted additional folders, examining signatures. Caleb's name recurred frequently. In some instances, he signed as CEO, in others as buyer, but never as seller. The folders also contained letters, correspondence with banks, nonprofits, and legal entities, as well as photographs. One image depicted Caleb alongside a smiling couple in front of a red barn, while another captured him shaking hands with a group of younger, clean-shaven farmers, yet unmistakably him. She reclined on the floor, astonished. Caleb was not merely observing land. He had previously constructed an empire. Upon awakening, Caleb discovered her in the front room, surrounded by folders resembling unsolved puzzle pieces. He attempted to rise but grimaced, grasping his side. "You examined it," he remarked softly. "You did not conceal it," she responded. He leaned against the doorframe, observing her. "I suppose I did not." June held one of the photographs. "You established Carter Land Group." "Indeed, and then you vanished." He nodded. When the situation deteriorated, she advanced closer. "These records. You acquired land for individuals and returned it after it was seized." "I attempted to," he replied, "but I was too late for some." June's voice softened. "What transpired?" Caleb breathed, then sank into a chair as if the burden of the truth had become too onerous to bear. "It commenced simply," he stated. "My proposal was to assist small farmers in acquiring land at a low cost, leasing it back under equitable conditions, so preventing them from forfeiting it to banks or corporations. I discovered collaborators, financiers, and individuals who articulated all the appropriate sentiments." He halted, his jaw clenching. "I subsequently discovered that they were exploiting my company to displace individuals from their land by acquiring debt, confiscating property, and selling it to developers. I represented it. The media referred to it as innovation. I term it stealing." June remained silent while seated opposite him. I attempted to halt it, but he persisted. I removed my name from the board and returned everything I could, but by that time, the harm was irreversible. Individuals held me accountable, and their assessment was accurate. I permitted it to occur. She extended her hand towards him. However, he did not depart. No, he stated, his voice subdued. I liquidated all my possessions, withdrew from public view, and began to gradually reclaim what was taken from me, discreetly. Without publicity, there is no recognition. Why not disclose your identity? They would perceive me as the individual who initially appropriated it. Indicate that I do not desire gratitude. I merely intended to rectify it. Her throat constricted. You have alleviated others' suffering while enduring your own. Caleb gazed downward. That is the sole method by which I could coexist with my conscience. June rose and approached the window. The charred remnants of a night's turmoil persisted outside. Ashes dispersed across the underbrush. A scorched tree stump emitting small wisps of smoke. She faced him again. You rescued me without knowledge of my identity or inquiry. He did not even react. He gazed in her eyes. I understood the experience of running. Her chest ached. She traversed the room and knelt adjacent to his chair. I perceive you now, Caleb Carter, and you're not the individual they claim you to be. You remained when others departed. He extended his hand and caressed her face with a coarse, bloodied palm. You are the one individual who has ever perceived beyond the silence. At that moment, nothing else was significant. Neither the territory nor the history. Only the delicate yet potent truth they presently shared. June had remained silent for hours. The sun commenced its descent over the arid expanses of Dust Valley, spreading elongated golden shadows across the hills as she completed packing the little satchel discovered in the antiquated ranch home. Caleb sat on the porch steps, adorned with bandages and bruises, observing her with subdued resignation. He did not request her to remain. She failed to elucidate the reason for her departure. The stillness between them had become frigid. You deceived me, she stated at last, her tone fragile. Caleb gazed at the soil beneath his boots. I did not deceive. I simply did not inform you. That is identical. She broke down. You led me to believe you were a reclusive cowboy evading the world, although you are not concealing yourself. You are rectifying what you contributed to damaging. He failed to defend himself. That exacerbated the situation. I placed my trust in you. She remarked, you provided me with space. Allow me to breathe once more. Meanwhile, you possess this empire behind you. Are you aware of that sensation? It felt diminutive, as if you had humiliated me. I never humiliated you, June, he stated softly. I observed you. She averted her gaze to prevent her tears from revealing her emotions. I cannot endure this. I cannot remain here and feign that it does not alter everything. With that, she departed. The town of Red Hollow was merely a day's journey away if one was familiar with the ancient paths. June arrived late the following afternoon, enveloped in dust, fatigued from head to toe, and uncertain of her objective. Perhaps she sought clarity or merely a respite. However, upon entering the corner store adjacent to the post office, the atmosphere transformed. Two women conversed in muted tones at the rear, halting June in her tracks. Last night, the Dawson's barn was incinerated, leaving a mark on the door identical to that from the ranch fire near the ridge. The Dawsons had recently returned, having acquired the deed last spring from the Carter Group. Rumor has it that the same individuals who sought that land years prior have returned, and they are more aggressive. June felt her heart sink. Another client remarked, the sheriff stated it is organized and highly tactical. They are focusing on individuals who have reclaimed their land from the Carter Buyback Fund. June exited, her blood running cold. It was no longer about her. It never had been. She seated herself on the bench adjacent to the store, gazing at the tranquil street. Children engaged in play near a water trough while horses passed by. However, beneath the surface, a sinister presence had resurfaced. The same individuals who had pursued her were now targeting others, those who possessed nothing but a home they were determined to defend. Caleb was aware of this, undoubtedly, and she had distanced herself. Her heart ached with a burden more profound than guilt. Regret. not due to his failure to disclose all, but because she inherently recognized his true nature. He was neither a cowboy, nor a tycoon, nor a hero. He was the type of man who remained in the shadows during adversity, the kind who battled without acclaim, who relinquished land not for accolades, but out of an inability to witness others suffer the losses he had endured. She had fled from that man, yet she was compelled to return. By dawn, June was mounted, exerting herself across the hills, disregarding the pain in her leg. The wind lashed her hair across her face, and her heart raced with urgency. She was uncertain of what she would articulate upon encountering him. Perhaps she would remain silent entirely. Perhaps she would remain there until he comprehended. The ridge became visible as the sky blushed pink. The antiquated ranch house stood in silence, the front door ajar, the chimney cold. "Caleb," she called, dismounting. No response. She entered, her pulse quickening. The table was still strewn with papers and maps. The cot was unmade, his coat draped over the chair. His hat rested on the banister. Then she noticed it, a note affixed to the wall. "Gone to inspect the Dawson property. They require someone to accompany them." Her breath hitched. He had departed, injured, solitary, yet still battling, not for safety, but out of necessity. She pivoted on her heel, remounted the horse, and urged it forward with force. This time, she would not allow him to remain isolated. The Dawson Ranch was positioned at the canyon's brink, encircled by arid fields, corroded fences, and resilience. Caleb was in the barn alongside half a dozen farmers, men and women who had previously lost their land, now standing united with the individual who had aided in its reclamation. June arrived just before nightfall, her horse lathered and shaking, her eyes aflame with eagerness. "You are tardy," Caleb said, his voice gravelly yet imbued with love. "I returned," she replied, breathless, "and I shall not depart again." They possessed merely hours for preparation. The news disseminated rapidly. The same group that set fire to the barn 2 nights prior would return before dawn. Directed by Logan Price, June's previous paramour who had deceived her and auctioned her to the highest bidder. He now sought territory, retribution, and dominance. June assisted in distributing ammunition and delineated escape routes behind the barn. Caleb strategically organized positions throughout the crest, leveraging his extensive knowledge of the terrain to their use. "They will approach from the western side," Caleb murmured, gesturing towards the tiny canyon passage. "That is the location where the soil yields beneath the pressure of trucks. If we intercept them there, we can create a bottleneck. And if we fail," June inquired, "we will compel them to suffer for every inch." Night descended. The wind wailed softly among the stones. Shortly before midnight, headlights emerged, piercing the dust and sagebrush like luminous fangs. The invaders arrived in black vehicles, equipped and fortified, exuding the hubris of individuals who had never seen refusal. Logan emerged first, towering and grinning, with a gun secured at his hip. He bellowed across the clearing, his voice reverberating like an imprecation. "Step forward, Carter. Let us converse as professionals." Caleb appeared, composed, with a weapon at his side. "This is not a business transaction, Logan. This is larceny." Logan smirked. "Label it as you wish. Nevertheless, you possess territory I desire and individuals incapable of recognizing your true nature. You will conceal yourself behind these lambs indefinitely." June emerged alongside Caleb, her eyes aflame. She stated that no one is concealing themselves, and you will receive nothing. Logan's expression contorted upon seeing her. "I believed you had departed permanently. I was," she stated, "until I recalled my identity." Logan's smile vanished. Subsequently, the initial shot was fired. It fractured throughout the night, tearing into the barn door within inches from Caleb's position. Disorder ensued. Gunfire erupted throughout the clearing. The farmers sought refuge behind hay bales and wooden wagons, retaliating with available weaponry. Antique hunting rifles, shotguns, and a crossbow. June concealed herself behind a trough, panting, with her heart racing. Caleb was positioned 20 feet ahead, sheltered behind a wagon, engaging with return fire with precise, practiced accuracy. One of the assailants attempted to maneuver around the left flank, stealthily traversing the ridge. He was first seen in June. She emerged from concealment, aimed, and pulled the trigger. The man fell. Her hands trembled, yet she did not waver once more. Amidst the smoke and cacophony, she instinctively navigated the chaos, reloading her weapon, issuing alerts, and assisting an elderly farmer in relocating his injured son under the barn. She was no longer a victim, fleeing from phantoms. She was the singular beacon illuminating their path. Unexpectedly, she heard Caleb call her name. She pivoted. Logan was targeting her directly from the elevated rocks. Subsequently, a haze ensued. Caleb traversing the expanse of open terrain. The gunshot reverberated. Caleb's body convulsed in midair before plummeting to the ground. Jones shouted while sprinting towards him. His shirt was stained crimson with blood on the shoulder and chest. No, she exclaimed, applying pressure to the injury. Remain with me, he coughed, his eyes blinking. Are you well? He murmured. You fool, she wept. What is your rationale for doing so? Due to the inability to endure another loss of you. The shooting behind them diminished. Logan's squad was withdrawing, disoriented by the opposition, the landscape, and their own casualties. Sirens echoed in the distance. Law enforcement had finally been summoned. However, June was indifferent. All she observed was the blood on Caleb's chest, disseminating like a scar onto the earth. The identical territory he had strived to safeguard and now seeped into Caleb's. The world oscillated between clarity and obscurity for several days. Discomfort obscured all perception. The pristine white of bandages, the sharpness of disinfectant, the faint sound of distant voices. Nevertheless, one aspect remained unwavering throughout. June never relinquished her grip on his hand. Upon awakening for the first time, genuinely alert rather than groaning or semi-muttering through fever, sunlight streamed through the window of the small town clinic. Avian creatures vocalized in the distance beyond the window ledge. A fan emitted a faint hum from the wall. As June slept, slumped in a wooden chair beside him, her hands still clasped around his. He rotated his head gradually, agony coursing through his chest where the bullet had narrowly grazed his lung. However, he remained indifferent. She was present. He did not require an explanation. She opened her eyes moments later, seemingly attuned to the change in the atmosphere. You are awake, she remarked, her voice trembling with subdued relief. He attempted to smile. You appear more disheveled than I do, she said, dabbing at her eyes. You nearly perished, Cowboy. Refrain from attempting humor. Nearly, he said. However, you retracted me. She inclined forward, her forehead softly touching his. You cannot depart yet, she whispered. Not at this early stage. In the subsequent days, June seldom departed from his company. She read aloud to him old westerns, ironically, and provided him with soup he consistently said was excessively salty. They observed the sunrise together from his window. At night, she recounted tales from the time prior to the disintegration of everything. Her early aspirations, the literary works she intended to compose, the cabin she previously illustrated on a serviette and designated as home. He listened because that was his enduring desire. A person who perceived beyond territory and dominion. Someone who recognized him. One evening, a nurse entered discreetly and presented June with a little envelope inscribed with Caleb's name on the front. We discovered this in his coat pocket, she stated. June thereafter opened it, while seated beside his bed as he slumbered. Inside, there was a folded sheet of paper and a ring. Unadorned silver, polished by the passage of time. The note was concise. If I do not return, please deliver this to her. Inform her that it was my mother's. Inform her that I desired her to possess it regardless of the circumstances. June refrained from crying at that moment. Her fingers clenched the ring firmly, pressing it to her breast as if it were more valuable than gold. Upon Caleb's awakening, she was present. You are not meant to read that yet, he said, his voice hoarse from slumber. You are not meant to be shot." He attempted to sit up more erect, but grimaced. She assisted him in rearranging the pillows. He stated that he did not intend to expedite anything. The note did not convey pressure. She said, "I am aware." It was a verity. He gazed at her intently and discerned no hesitation, no fear, only love. He stated that he previously believed he was constructing something significant enough to have an impact. "I believe that by generating sufficient noise, acquiring ample land, and assisting numerous individuals, I might rectify the aspects of myself that remained unaddressed." She remained mute, allowing him to articulate his thoughts. "However, I was mistaken. One does not achieve self-improvement by aspiring to greater heights. You accomplished this by introspection, and you imparted that knowledge to me, June." He extended his hand towards the ring now situated in her palm. He mumbled that he no longer wished to construct a kingdom. "I desire to construct a residence with you." June inhaled sharply. He raised the ring, quivering slightly. "Will you allow me to be the reason for my perseverance? Be my inception, rather than merely my salvation?" Her eyes brimmed immediately. She acquiesced. "Affirmative," she stated. "Affirmative, Caleb. I shall." Tears cascaded down her cheeks as he placed the ring on her finger. Petite, flawed, and exquisite. They did not engage in a kiss immediately. In that moment, enveloped by tranquility and the scent of fresh linens and mending injuries, two souls, having journeyed extensively, ultimately discovered what they had long doubted existed, a sanctuary to repose together. 1 year later, the wind in Dust Valley blew more gently. The summer sun illuminated the hills in gold as wildflowers swayed along the fence lines of a tiny ranch situated between two hillsides. It was not substantial. It lacked refinement, yet it was vibrant. Chickens clucked adjacent to the barn. Horses grazed languidly in the paddock, and laughter resonated in the open air as youngsters sprinted through the thick grass, pursued by a brown dog with a crooked tail and boundless enthusiasm. Within the cabin, the aroma of cinnamon and heated oats permeated the kitchen. June positioned herself near the open window, cradling her infant daughter in one arm while stirring a soup on the stove with the other hand. Her visage radiated the gentle weariness of recent childbirth and the serene happiness of connection. Caleb positioned a saddle on one of the horses outside, momentarily smiling at the sounds of baby coos and June's soft humming. His eyes now bore additional lines, attributed to laughter rather than concern. Upon observing his daughter enveloped in a blanket fashioned from a worn flannel shirt, his heart surged with a sense of peace he never anticipated attaining. She was referred to as Lena, a name that June had always cherished. Gentle yet resilient, the ranch had transcended its role as merely a residence. It had transformed into a sanctuary. Bi-weekly, they opened their gates to children from adjacent counties. Children who have experienced loss, terror, and abandonment. June conducted sessions under the large oak tree, employing horses as therapeutic agents, fostering trust, one ride at a time. Caleb instructed them on how to guide a horse using their words rather than their hands. The laughter that currently permeates the land was once silence. Caleb never regained his public title. No press release, no reunion tour. Discreetly, via local solicitors and anonymous contributions, he assisted numerous households in reclaiming previously confiscated land, facilitated the construction of greenhouses, repaired wells, and restocked barns. His name was unknown. However, the man with the steady hands and compassionate eyes was recognized for his consistent presence, equipped with a tool belt, a seed bag, or a wordless gesture of empathy. One evening, as the sky transitioned into shades of lavender and burnt orange, Caleb scooped Lena into his arms and transported her to the field where June awaited with 3 saddled horses. "Family excursion?" she inquired, smiling. He nodded, carefully positioning Lena into the baby wrap on June's chest. She believed it was time for her to witness the vista from the ridge. They ascended gradually and deliberately. Caleb guided the path, with June closely after, the infant cradled against her heartbeat. The ascent to the summit of the hill was tranquil interrupted only by avian melodies and the steady cadence of hooves. Upon reaching the summit, the valley unfolded before them, vast, infinite, and radiant. Caleb inhaled it. "This was once my running route," he stated, his voice down. "This is my current residence." June inclined her body forward, placing a hand on his arm. "You constructed more than a residence here," she murmured. "You constructed restoration." As the sun descended, enveloping the globe in a golden glow, Caleb gazed at the entrance to the land. A weathered wooden sign, recently affixed, swayed softly in the breeze. Carved into its surface, though worn, were the words, "The Carter Ranch, where hope comes home." Caleb smiled, and for the first time, the man who had once borne the burden of empires and regret recognized his true identity. A father, a spouse, a man in tranquility. As the horse beneath him advanced, transporting him beside the woman and child who had redeemed his spirit, Caleb Carter rode, not into the sunset, but directly towards all he had ever desired, home. From ashes and stillness, two injured spirits discovered not merely refuge, but rejuvenation. From the ashes of treachery sprung the foundations of trust. From the remnants of the past emerged the basis for a new future constructed not with barriers and designations, but with affection, fortitude, and the assurance of never traversing alone again. The narrative of Caleb and June illustrates that the most formidable empires are not necessarily constructed from territory or wealth. They are composed of silent bravery, opportunities for redemption, and the family we select. If this narrative resonated with you, reminding you that healing is attainable even amidst tumultuous storms, please contemplate subscribing to Soul-Stirring Stories. We present authentic, impactful, and poignant narratives that resonate deeply and reaffirm that hope is always within reach. Click subscribe, activate the notification bell, and become part of our expanding community of narrative enthusiasts who hold faith in illumination following adversity. Until we meet again, embrace kindness, have faith in new beginnings, and consistently choose love. Emotionally evocative narratives.